everybody, don't forget to join Spotted Turtle and I. She's going to be telling her story of survival when she was human trafficked as a child. Everybody is welcome to join. Disrespect will not be tolerated. We are here to listen and learn. This is a huge epidemic and it affects all of us. This is happening underneath our noses every single day. We're going to talk about how she was brought up, what led her down this path, what she went through, how she survived, and how she's doing now. Not only is she going to be telling her story, but we are also going to be hearing from people in the comments. You guys will be able to ask questions as well at the end. And we're also going to go over resources and talk about what we can do to look for the signs of human trafficking and to help prevent any of this from happening to people that we love and ourselves as well. Nobody is exempt from this. Everybody deserves to know how to protect themselves and what to look for. Thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the people who have taken on the mod status. Please don't abuse it, but obviously if you see something that needs to be taken out of here, do that. We don't want any disrespect. Any disrespect will not be tolerated. You will be blocked and muted immediately. And yeah, so have an open mind and be kind. If you have questions, again, I will write them down. If she feels like she wants to answer them in that moment, I'm not going to tell her no, but I can write things down and we can address them later. And then at the end, we can have people come up and talk about things with her if that's what everyone's comfortable with. Okay, so I guess I'll just start with the first question that I had on here. We're going to start with, like, your upbringing. So, like, you know, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your family life?
Yep, so I had, excuse me, a couple of siblings, my mom and dad. My mom looked like Farrah Fawcett. She was incredibly beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. My dad is Ojibwe and absolutely gorgeous. My father was, I don't say residential school because in Toronto it worked differently. He was basically put in boys' homes. He met my mother at 18. They got married and had me on Boxing Day, well, Christmas basically, but Boxing Day, like 1 a.m, my mother passed away. She was 31 years old and I was 11. And within a few days of Christmas, a few days of my mother, before she even had her funeral, I was apprehended by the Children's Aid. And I was apprehended because my father, I'm not going to say because he was Indigenous, but it's kind of the way it was. There was, when you have records, so my father was in Children's Aid, my grandfather was in Children's Aid. That's what it was called in Toronto. So there was a record of my father. And I don't know exactly who, like, if anybody reported or what, but they apprehended me and put me into a few like group homes and foster homes, and they would try to ship me far away from Toronto, and I would run back downtown, and I would find my dad or other family members, and the Children's Aid and the courts would say, like, if I was caught with my dad at his place, they would arrest my dad. So wow. I didn't want my dad getting arrested, and sorry. Go ahead. No.
Just to clarify, like with being apprehended, you were saying that you know, it was before her funeral around Christmas time. Yes. Were you apprehended because your father had been in the system and your grandfather and everything? Was it just something that was like a record and they were just like, okay, we need to, or was there more to it? And if you're not comfortable saying, then don't, obviously.
I couldn't have imagined there being anything more to it. I don't think any of my mother's side of the family or anybody said, hey, or any of that.
What year was this? You said you were 11?
1979. And then 1980 was like, because it was Christmas. So like that week after my mom died, and then came 1980. So I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And so
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. That's okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to totally cut you off with that. You were talking about you didn't want to get your father arrested, so you were...
Right. So I was I probably was in by the through the course of like the first year, so 11 to 12, almost 12. I was put in different group homes and whatever. And every time you run away, you weren't allowed to go back to the same group home or foster home. I did go to a foster home that was really awesome, but then I ran away and I wasn't allowed to go back to that one. And I would always run back to Toronto. So they started keeping me in Toronto. So then I met a girl in one of the group homes. So I'm in group homes with a lot of kids that were sadly more troubled than, in fact, like the only reason I was in a group home was because my mom died and they didn't like my dad. I wasn't a troubled kid.
Wow.
Right? And I had met
you were
a girl.
essentially kidnapped by the system then in that time.
Essentially, yeah. And I would have been better off in a box under a bridge with my father. But I met a girl in the group home, and we went with these guys. We were driving around. They were older, obviously, because they were driving. And she was a little older. She was about 15. And we parked somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't want to do sexual favors, so they left me there in the middle of nowhere. And I remember calling the cops.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I went to a phone booth because you had to go to phone booths back then. There were no cell phones, I think. And I walked for miles to a phone booth and called 911 or operator.
And you were still around 11, 12 years old when this was going on?
12, and I'm in a payphone, and I'm telling them I took off from the group home and I'm lost and whatever. They didn't even really seem to care. They took like an hour to come and get me. But anyway, that same girl was the first person to encourage me to become, how do we do TikTok friendly?
Almost like she opened the can of worms, or not can of worms, but she just sort of, maybe she was the one that introduced you to that lifestyle.
Yeah, so she it was down by the famous Harvey's, and she's like, let's go down here, and she's telling me to do this. And so the very first time I did that, it was weird. A guy picked me up, and 15 minutes later, I was back at the Harvey's with like $80 in my pocket.
And how old were you when that happened?
Almost 12.
So you're, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Almost 12. So that would have been 1980?
Yeah, 1980. So what she was doing was grooming me for the pimps.
Oh no.
Right? So she had a few pimps that...
And she obviously was a victim of this as well, right? So she was probably being trafficked to go out and recruit girls.
Yeah, that's what what they called it in the 80s was like you became like sister wives to these pimps, and you all thought that you were the one they loved the most or whatever. But for me, I wasn't attracted to these pimps. A lot of these girls sadly were, but I never was. And I really hate to say this, but back in the 80s in downtown Toronto, it was predominantly a certain ethnicity. And I just wasn't attracted to that ethnicity. But that's sadly what the case was, right?
And that's where okay.
So I don't...
So you basically, your whole childhood, essentially after your mom passed away, you didn't even have a childhood after that. You got apprehended by by the government, I guess, by foster care. And was that to do with was your father and grandfather in the system because of them being Indigenous, or was there... Okay.
Yes, so my father, was,
Interesting.
I'm technically considered 60s scoop because that went from the 50s to the 80s, but I was scooped differently. I was scooped because my mother died. There's a lot of different ways.
That's awful.
To be considered scooped as a baby, a newborn, whatever. My father...
It's kidnapping. It's kidnapping. That's what that is. It's kidnapping. Yeah, that's awful. I'm so sorry.
Of being in care, and I don't know. I don't know if it was. I don't know who. I still to this day don't know. It didn't say when I got my files years later. I never did know. He's passed away, so I don't know. He couldn't.
Before she passed. Before she passed, though, was there any what was your life like? Like, were you into sports? Did you have hobbies? Were you close with friends? Like,
Yeah, I
was
played
things pretty
bikes.
normal
I
before
played
that?
sports.
Do you have any dreams?
My dad drove a coffee truck. My mother made X-ray machines. She
Okay.
invented X-ray machines. Like not
Wow.
invented them, but she what do you call it when you make something better?
Like almost like reforming it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, like she
She
was
worked on the like
research
advancing
and
of the
development.
technology.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
basically
There you go.
research and development and technology on X-ray machines.
Wow.
Yeah. So and she died of a heart attack. She just died. 31 years old. Just died.
Oh my gosh.
The ambulance came, or pardon me, I slept with her because my parents had broken up at that point, and I slept with her. And then she was having a heart attack. We called the operator, and the ambulance took a while, but my dad got there even quicker. My dad was like fast because they had just broken up, like they were separated for a few months, but my dad got there right quick. And yeah, she died in the ambulance.
Oh my
So
gosh. I'm so
the
sorry.
cops came. Oh, maybe that's why. Now, wow, just talking about it made me think. Because when my mom was put in the ambulance, I was at home, and my sister went in the ambulance, and my father went to the hospital. And then the police came to my apartment where I lived with my mom to tell me that she was no longer with us. So that's probably it. I never even thought of that. That's probably what the cops knew my
And
dad.
you probably haven't talked about this for a while either, though, right?
Yeah, well,
So,
that part of it, no. Like I just
yeah.
personally, that might be it because,
Wow, I'm so sorry.
but
That must have shaped that obviously shaped the rest of your life because after that, you just kind of got the circumstances of that kind of changed the directory and that's what kind of started leading you down that road, right?
yep. And then so I was always downtown. I had lots of extended family, cousins, everybody down there. But the threats. So what would happen was first the courts threatened me if I went to my dad, and then the traffickers threatened me if I went to my family or my dad. So
Wow.
so I was put into. I guess you could show like kind of what those motels look like if you want.
Yeah, I
I
can do
was,
that. If you hear me
I was
typing, by the way, it's me just making notes about what you're saying so that if I have to reference something, I can go back.
yeah.
That's all. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm paying
Oh
attention.
no,
But if you
that's
hear the
fine.
typing, it's me just literally just trying to take notes.
That first girl and
Here,
her
which,
people. We went to the motels.
oh,
The
hold on.
motel.
1 second here. I made the background with all of the, was it? Yeah. Oh,
No,
sorry.
no,
Sorry.
not that one. That was the final one. So they were
This,
motel strips on Kingston Road and on the lakeshore in Toronto, and they were notorious for trafficking and whatnot. Whether they were young or middle-aged boys, girls, women, it didn't matter. Like there are certain motels, like this particular one here was predominantly
it's even
like
got the
12,
pedo van outside.
yeah, right, 12, 13, 14-year-olds that were at this particular motel.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was basically locked in there
I don't know
in
if,
those rooms for a few weeks, and people would come to the door. And if I didn't, I just knew I had to. Like the way they were, the way they would like beat you up and put drugs in you and
oh
stuff
my
like that,
gosh.
and threaten your family and threaten your loved ones, right?
Like,
So
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 how did the traffickers end up gaining control over you? Because you were saying that like it started where you remember the first thing that you had done when you were about, you said you were 12,
yeah,
and that he had brought you back to the Harveys and stuff. So like,
yeah.
were
The
there any
girl.
warning signs or red flags like looking back now?
No, I had no clue what was going on. Like I had no clue. Like so, the first while was kind of a blur in a sense. People would come to the door, and the way back then there was no way to advertise, right? Like there wasn't social media. There used to be some newspaper ads in the back of the ads, but that would be more for adults. So they had ways, it was Young Street. So there was these weird, creepy, dirty movie places and stuff where the people who owned the dirty movie stores on Young Street had like connections so that the men who wanted young girls would know where to get, like they knew where the connections were, knew where to get the videos. They made videos of me with VCRs.
Oh my gosh.
Stuff like that. And
I'm so sorry.
it's okay. It's okay.
That's just the way that I am. If it's too much, then
No, it's fine. So
I get in fights over who's more sorry in my world.
after a while, like it's weird. It becomes
You desensitize.
You get Stockholm syndrome or whatever. And so that's when I started like walking. I would be put out onto the lakeshore strip or by Hooker. Well, Hooker Harvey's was for older girls, so that wasn't until I was around 15 or 16. But at this young age of 12, I had to be hidden on this motel strip here because it was very like barren back then. It's just a small little highway with like 20 motels kind of thing, right? So the men that wanted to find young girls and boys, and like 19-year-olds too, but young, would just drive along there, right? And you would have to stand there. And so, yeah, I stood there and so I did the math years later. So like in grand total, over the course of from age 12 to 16, and back then the age of consent was 14, by the way. I did the math. It was about 3,000.
Is it okay if I post the photos up of you around that age? Okay.
So, yeah.
Because then they can get a visual of like what you were.
Yeah.
Okay, one sec here.
And I'll explain the photos.
Thanks again, everybody, for being so respectful.
The first year or two, let's get past that first year or two. So like 12 and 13, it was kind of hidden away on that motel strip and all that. And the picture on the right, they would always put those bunny shirts on us so that the men on this driving by would know. Like that's
it was like the symbol.
Yeah, Playboy bunny thing, right? And the one on the left, if you look at the back, that's pictures of fetuses and whatnot, because I was at the doctor's. The children's aid took me to the doctor's to have my third abortion. And I was,
oh my gosh.
The ages are reversed, so it was 14 on the left and 13 on the right. But yeah, so that was like throughout the time, I would either get found by police, put back into children's aid, and then I would run away from the children's aid because they took me so far away from the city, or I was already like Stockholm syndromed, and sometimes I would run away and like do it on my own and use the fucking money and just like buy things for myself and stuff. I didn't always be trapped by these traffickers. Like I would go to the park, that famous park. Everybody knows where the teepees are. That's my like different parks in Toronto where all my family have always hanged out over the years. So I would find my dad, I would find loved ones or whatever, and then boom, the pimps would buy me again, and then they'd threaten me again, and then it'd be like, so it just became an ongoing cycle like that. And then around the age of, right, so by the time I hit like 14, 15, especially 15, I started getting tougher, but I needed I kind of needed
well, you didn't have any choice. You were in complete survival mode.
Yeah, and I kind of needed the pimps in a sense of, if I didn't, then I'd get my face kicked in or my family would be threatened or whatever. But I started, like, they get a cut of the money. You know what I'm saying? So now it became more of I had some control of myself, but I still was being controlled, right?
Can you describe some of the things that you went through during the time that you were trafficked? Like, whatever you're comfortable with, of course. Like,
oh, I almost lost my life a few times. The majority of the times, in all honesty, the actual act was mind-numbingly easy. Literally would take on average 5 to 6 minutes, like, right? Or 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
You probably found ways to dissociate during those times too, right? Because after a while, it's just...
Absolutely. And most of them are very basic, like just wanted a quick, BJ or whatever. Like it was just, that's how the men were. That's how the clients were. But there was
Disgusting.
also some very violent, abusive, terrifying ones.
Was there
Oh,
like an average age of these men that you seem to see? Like, were they really old? Were they more middle age, in their 20s,
all
teenagers? Like,
ages, all ethnicities. The interesting thing was you didn't get a lot of like biker type men or really construction type men. I think that's why I've always been attracted to alpha men like that because the majority were suit and ties. As I got a little older, like I would go to stags and I'd have to spin a roulette wheel and I would like the stag parties grossed me out because
ugh, I can imagine.
the weird thing what women should know, I want women to know this because 90% of the men that were at the stag parties obviously were married, but 90% of them got the services from me, including the groom.
Wow. And you
Yeah.
were 15? Or was this all throughout the
Well,
whole?
all throughout, but like there would be sometimes it would be like 5 girls that would go to a stag, for instance, and some of them were 21, some of them were whatever. It doesn't even
Ugh.
matter. It's
Did
just
they know that you were a minor, or were they just assuming that you were
um,
of age?
the ones that knew, you know. But like I want to have a
Bastards.
musical interlude because Samantha's getting on my last nerve.
Don't let her get to you. She doesn't understand, like, she doesn't understand what you've gone through. The only thing that we can thank her for is inspiring you to have your voice today.
Yeah.
You know? But don't worry, I'll let you get that out about her after too, don't worry. Because I'm sure that you want to say some things, but I also want to make sure that you get your story heard too, right? So these men, they knew at these stag parties and stuff, like they knew you, some of them knew you were underage. Did some know and not take part? And, like,
Yes.
did anybody try to help you? Did anyone say like, "Yo, like I understand, like what the hell?
No
Like,
one
do you
ever
need
tried
help?"
to help. No,
Not one
not till
person.
my first daughter's father. But he wasn't a like he wasn't that's not how I met him. But
Wow.
no. Uh, so hmm.
How did you cope with all of this, like day to day realities of what you were dealing with, or did you even realize that you were in
It
this?
was I didn't really know anything different. Like I didn't know anything different. I had all my friends from grade 7 that I had, and they all went on to have great lives. I mean, I was a skateboarder. We were like little 11-year-old stoners, you know what I
Little
mean? Like
tomboys.
tomboys. Even at
Yeah.
12 and 13, I would still go and see them while they were in grade 9 and 10. I'd still once in a while go visit them and go to my neighborhood where I was raised. And
Did you ever tell them what you were going through? Did
no,
you ever talk to anybody about it?
no, I never did.
Did you not say anything because you felt like the people who had control of you may know, or like were you scared, or did you just?
I just was, I think, probably grossed out maybe. Once in a while, whenever Children's Aid would like get me, I'd call Children's Aid. Like I even got molested by a female staff at children in a group home
Are you
once.
serious?
But they would put me in high school, so when they would catch me, say I'd be in Children's Aid, and I'd tolerate a group home for like a month or two, and then I'd go to high school. So I went to like 6 or 7 different high schools. So I did like however many years in grade 9 and never got like one credit. I would go to high school and like hang out with the janitors and smoke weed and stuff. Like I didn't really, but I forget where I was going
It's
with.
wild to me that no adults ever like stepped in to say, "Hey, are
Nope,
you okay? Do you need help? Like
nope.
we can help you."
The group homes were just like living hell places. Like the staff were there for money. Some were perverts. Um, Others just didn't care, and then you would be surrounded like full of a bunch of people my age that are I didn't want to be around them. I didn't like it. I didn't like the streets, but I thought the streets was fucking better because I could run away and still see some of my family sometimes and see my dad sometimes. We just couldn't get caught. And then like whenever I was feeling threatened, I would avoid my family, so because I thought that the traffickers would like hurt my family, right?
Well, yeah, they groomed you to believe that like they, you know, no matter they had control over you.
Yeah.
They had total control with your money, like they knew where your family was. You
Yeah.
didn't know if somebody, like, did
Music,
you ever
all
see
those
people like
family
watching
views.
you? Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
It's
Yeah,
just,
it was group homes sucked. Like there was there were so many of them, and you every time like you would get assigned a new caseworker, right? Or if they tried to ship you out of the city, then you get assigned a new caseworker. And I had one caseworker, Marnie Walker. I only remember the names of the good people in my life, and she
aw.
was like one of them, right? But then she had got moved. She got moved or something. She wasn't my worker anymore. But she tried really hard to stay on as my worker, like break the rules, and still remain my worker, even though I ran away and didn't come back for 6 months, or I got moved to another group home in a different district or whatever. Right?
And did she know that you were being trafficked?
Uh, I don't
Did
remember.
any of these people in these
So
authority
around
figures?
Yeah, so at around 15, they were all fully aware. So I've read my
Okay.
file. I read, so where those pictures came from that you guys are looking at on the screen, those pictures I got them when I received my children's aid file years later, and that's where I learned some of the details. So yeah, they were familiar with what was going on. There was reports of I had reported um, some of the things that happened to me in the group homes, and they marked that stuff down, but never did anything. Never tried
Wow.
to.
So
Yeah.
what was the turning point that led to you being able to like escape, or were you rescued, or how did you get out of this?
So what I did was I just became incredibly streetwise and incredibly tough and incredibly scary. And at that point, I became like nobody fucked with me. I had an incredible amount of family and friends, right? And I wasn't scared of these people anymore. And I still did what I did, but I did it all for myself. And I made hundreds and hundreds of dollars a day.
So you had
And
to almost like hustle your way out of it in a way.
yeah, yep. And I wouldn't. And then pardon me. So I started telling my family and friends, right?
Mm-hmm. Started
And
speaking up. You got the courage to
right.
speak up.
And then it was like, now I have a whole fucking gang of people that are not going to let these people fuck with me. You
That's,
understand?
yeah, yeah.
So
You had to
now
be confident in your own strength before you could have talked to other people about it, obviously.
Mhm.
So,
And a few of my family and friends knew what was happening to me, but also they were into their own, had their own lives going on too. So it wasn't like I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't there like, please help me. But once I started saying, please help me, holy fuck, did the help come? Holy fuck.
does it make you think like I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way in any way at all, but like, do you ever wonder if you had spoken up sooner? Or, well, you said you did tell like caseworkers and stuff some things, but like, if you had spoken up sooner, do you think it would have had the same response, or do you think you would have been more timid about it? Like, do you think it would have,
I
like, how
think
do you feel?
kind of
Sorry.
I wish I did start speaking up. But, well, what would happen once it was like, okay, around this time now, we're at like 15, 16 now, right? They would do roundups, the police. So it was a crime. And it was called communicating for the purpose of engaging in prostitution. So I would give fake ages to the police. They knew I was not the age I was giving, but they would do roundups and arrest like 30, 40 girls in one night, right? Like they would pretend they're Johns, and then they'd put us all in paddy wagons and
Was
like
that
we'd
when
go
you
to
were living
camp.
at that red building? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that when you
That
were
was
living at
just
that red?
before the red building. So
Okay, sorry.
just
Go ahead.
before the red building. Um, So they would do roundups and whatever, and be like a shit ton of us in like 17-inch heels and mini skirts, and the cops were loving it. The cops were fucking loving. They're doing their whole shift, arresting drop dead gorgeous streetwalkers from Hooker Harveys and whatever. Like none of us were. There was a different section and area for people that were like strung out. No disrespect to them, but like there's $20 crack whores, and then there's like $200 whores. I was a $200 one, right?
It's
So
wild that the police were loving that though,
yeah, and the
because
police
it's
didn't
like how
ever
corrupt.
go. Yeah, they didn't ever go after the $20 ones. You know what I'm saying? There was one time.
And like you're minors too, and I'm sure some of these police officers knew that. Do you? I have
I
some
would say
questions.
the only
Sorry.
small percentage at this point were minors. So, like me being 15 at this time and 16, there was some 15 and 16-year-olds, but also 19, 20, 21. You know, it was kind of like that whole age range. One time, a cop. So what would happen was a cop would pull up in a car, and you would learn that like they can't say the price. I have to say the price because that's communicating, right?
Right. Right.
So we would try to learn whatever. But anyway, some tricks would be like, we would be like, okay, you would say, I'm going to touch you because supposedly cops weren't allowed to be touched, right? But this one cop said to me, well, prove to me. He says to me, prove to me I'm not a cop. So I touched him in his area. And like 2 seconds later, I'm under arrest.
Do you feel? Oh man. So do you feel like he kind of trapped you in that one, a little bit, or?
They were just doing it to be perverted. I was in the cells where the cells, like there's cameras, and they're like, back then you could smoke and all that, right? But only if you had them in your cell or whatever. And one time I was like, can I get my smokes, please, and matches? And like, well, the camera shut off, like flash me your tits, that kind of stuff. The cops did that kind of stuff all the time. All the
So
time.
you dealt with a lot of dirty cops then.
Oh yeah, I went down to a place called Cherry Beach. It's famous. It's called Cherry Beach Express. It was a beach in Toronto. It's not horrible anymore. It's very popular now, but back then it was where the police would take all kinds of different people from all different walks of street life.
Did any of these police, do you know if any of them ever got held accountable or anything? Because obviously they were like taking services.
Yes, a few did down the road. Actually, years later, one through DNA because a child was conceived. And the girl was always saying, like, look, he fucking did this to me at Cherry Beach, blah, blah, blah. No one ever believed her until years later, her son is now grown and DNA proved it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that happened a lot.
Man, and it sucks because it's those cops, because cops are supposed to be there. Like when you see them and you're in trouble, you're supposed to feel like, okay, someone's here to help me. And then when you see cops pull up, especially when you're being trafficked, and they're like, hey, baby, like, show me your tits. Like, it's like, what?
So that's the thing that what I noticed with cops. Like, so sadly, back in the day in the 80s, 51 Division was known. That's where they put all their bad cops. So if you were already of it, so 51 Division and 52 were notorious for the bad cops.
And that was in the 80s?
Yeah, that was in the 80s.
I'm going to look some of these things up. I want to see if I can find
right
stories.
Down Cherry Beach Express. There's even a song, Q107 got banned from playing it on the radio because it was talking about the Cherry Beach Express and being handcuffed to a chair at 51 Division, getting kicked down the stairs and stuff like that. And that was like the boys and the men, like, you know, and women and girls. They took it, they abused everybody on the street.
That's awful. I'm so sorry. I know you're used to hearing that and all that, but I do mean that. Like, no one should ever have to go through. And this all started because your mom passed away and you got apprehended by child services because of your Indigenous status and your father and grandfather being part of the system. And so essentially they kind of helped you, which isn't uncommon. There's a lot of kids who go into the system who end up being trafficked. Do you think that there was any correlation? Like, do you think that they had an idea that this was going to be, like, I don't know how to ask this question. This wasn't on my page. I'm trying to think, like, do you think they had any idea that this was going to be your outcome? Or, because it didn't seem to try to help you out of it or try to get you stable. I mean, they took you from your family, so during a grieving process.
Some of the staff in group homes were also profiting to say, it would be weird because some girls, they're quote-unquote boyfriends. So remember the post we did, and it kind of explains, like, you fall in love with this guy, and this guy loves you, and he says, oh, we just need
the boyfriend phase thing.
So that concept, that happened to a lot of the friends I had. That's how they ended up in it, falling in love with this guy, thought he was, like, the best. Right?
Which is probably what happened to the girl that was 15 that recruited you, because you met her at the group home too, right?
Right. And sometimes group home staff, these pimps would either threaten them or pay them off to say, hey, she's here. Like, You know,
She's
I
like
don't know.
Ghislaine Maxwell in that situation. But in the kids, no, she's not like Ghislaine. Sorry, I'm taking that back because that
No,
girl
no,
was trafficked as well.
no, it
But
doesn't
that's
matter.
what they did. That's what like Epstein and Maxwell did is they would take
Yeah,
girls in who were vulnerable
yeah,
or on the street or whatever, in a park, whatever. And if they didn't want to do anything, then they'd be like, okay, well, then you can get us some girls then, and we'll give you these privileges or whatever the case. So it's a
yeah.
different form of trafficking. I mean, I'm sure she was
Yeah, there
obviously
is
being
so
sex
many
trafficked too,
victims,
but
and I've seen it like with my own eyes. I've seen it with the boys, with the I guess of age people, like of
oh yeah,
age.
how many was there a lot of like boys that were
Oh
in
fuck
this
yeah!
too? Because that doesn't get talked
So,
about enough. I feel like
so
there's a
in
stigma around
Toronto for
that.
the girls, so you had the younger young girls were on the Lakeshore Strip and the Hotel Strip. Then you had 15, 16, 17, 18, that would be Hooker Harvey's. The boys would be at what's called Bay and Wellesley and Queen's Park. So where you were speaking, that was a very famous place in the 80s for to find. Go find yourself a 13-year-old boy.
Really?
Yeah, along those sidewalks and
At
stuff.
that park that I spoke at?
Yeah, along the sidewalks there and all that. Like, because back
Wow.
then, that's the only way you could do. There was no other way of doing prostitution except being on the street. There was
I
no.
mean, that's true. There was no internet or
Yeah.
anything,
And
so
then after years, like after the laws changed a little bit, then it became like massage parlors, and now it's online, and you go to a condo. And like the condos surrounding me, I would bet there's at least 10 apartments in every single condo, and out of those 10, there's probably three condos that have say five women, but they're still trafficked, and they're from say Ukraine or China or wherever, and they're adults and they're being trafficked. And then there's going to be an apartment that has 12 and 13-year-olds. And when you have the ads, I've researched all this. So the way the ads work nowadays online, right? You go to, it used to be a Backpage and Craigslist and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And if it said 18, beautiful 18-year-old, blah, 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 18 was the key word. Men knew 18 meant 15, 14, 13 because 18 was legal, right?
right.
So if it said 22, then a man would say, okay, that's 22. You're likely going to have a fucking adult that you're getting service from. But those adults are still also being trafficked, but from a different way. Like
And they may very well have been groomed from childhood as well.
right, or they came from whatever country. Like I've met so many of them. I ran an escort agency for a little while in Kingston, and all of them were independent. But there was this one girl who wasn't. I knew right away that she had a fucking pimp. And that pimp tried to get her to work at my agency, and there was no way that was going down. And I saved her. But like, yeah, you can tell. You can tell. So a lot of the ads the men use nowadays online. So they used to go to the massage parlors. Those massage parlors were usually run by whomever, and then I would say 80% of the massage parlors were women that were being trafficked. 1,000%, whether they owed money to get to Canada or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of them can be like not just sex traffic, but there's work trafficking too.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
there's people that just they don't do sexual services, but they will help with like the other stuff in order to get those girls
Adam
recruited.
stuff, doing the
And that's still trafficked. They're still
Yeah.
being trafficked.
so that would the charge for that was living off the avails. So that's what the men like that would get charged with. So pimps would get charged with living off the avails of prostitution, or another charge. I can't remember the name of the charge, but they didn't go after them as much as they went after the girls. It was wrong because they really should have been focusing on, the traffickers.
Right. Well, the
But
people
they-
doing the crimes, not the victims, and
Yeah,
because
and
the
then
victims always they end up getting persecuted
I
way
ended
more.
up with a record, so I got convicted, or they found out. So what was it? Like 16, I had a conviction for communicating, and then years later, as I used to bail, I still bail people out, right? So they know everything. The courts know me like the back of my hand. Like I'm very, very, very well known in the Toronto courts, right? And I've advocated for youth my whole adult life, like, but whatever. Anyway, so they know. So they know my record. They're like, okay. And when a judge has to hear, like, okay, well, this person's gonna act as surety for this youth. She's great. Everything. She's always successful with her youth. youth by that I mean like up to 25. Like I'm not talking kids, right?
Yeah.
But I would always my go-to line, or the Crown or the Duty Council's go-to line, was she was criminalized for being a victim, Your Honor. So when they brought up that conviction, it was a reasonable thing, because how can you be a victim and a criminal, right? Like, just because 16 was legally age of consent, it doesn't take away from the fact that I was victim.
And not only that, but they should have looked into your records to see like what your circumstances were, that you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
apprehended at 11 years old after your mom passed away, and
yeah.
you didn't get a chance to grieve, you didn't get a chance to be with your family. You
Nope.
immediately got thrown into survival mode. And
And
you
then
were recruited by a girl who was also going through it in the same group home that you were in. So
yeah,
you didn't really have a chance.
that. So there's a one of the hotels was at Bay Street and Gerard. So it was right by the downtown bus terminal. So that's where pimps would hang out, at the bus terminal. So all these runaways from all over Ontario would end up at the Bay Street bus terminal. And then literally 2 blocks from there was this hotel. And like, if they were naive enough to fall for this charming guy at the bus station that's going to help you, they could spot a runaway a mile away. Then they took you right just a couple blocks away to this fucking hotel, and it would begin. So that's how it would happen for random people that just ran away from mom and dad.
And that's
Like,
kind of, I mean, you didn't run away, but, well, you were kind of running away from the group homes
I was
or
really like
the foster
yeah.
homes
And
and
a lot
stuff,
of the
right?
people that I ended up in their situation just wanted to get, like, they weren't 12. I'm going to say that they were mostly like 15, 16, whatever, still babies.
Still kids, though, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
and
kids,
they
but
end up
like,
at the bus station, and then the pimps would just start, like, no, exactly. You could just tell when a kid
it's
gets
like
off
they
the
could
bus.
smell
Yeah, they
vulnerability.
can smell it. Yeah,
That's so,
and that's
people's
how
brains.
a good chunk of the people that. So then, yeah, let me think. So
Did you have like a specific trafficker, or did you have multiple traffickers throughout? Like you, between what, it was between 12 and 16?
there was like a gang of them. There was a gang of them, and there was about 15 of them altogether, that for all the people that I knew. So all the boys and girls and young adults, but 2 or 3 would target each person. So I had like 3.
You had 3 traffickers?
Yeah.
And were any of them ever caught? Were any of them held responsible for anything?
Well, so what happened was I met my daughter's father. I got a room in that hotel. I had my daughter when she was born.
Oh, was that the Red Hotel?
Yeah. So
Let me
when
bring
she
that
was
up.
born, the Children's Aid tried to take her from me, whatever. They took her for a bit, but I got her back. But anyway, like, that's just kind of too much for me to talk about. But
That's okay. You don't have to talk about it.
a young girl who was 15, she was, so one of those 15 guys, 10, 15 guys, wasn't one of mine. It was another one. And he was doing brutal fucking things, right? And I'm already a tough girl by this point, so they're already scared of me. They were scared of me. If they seen me coming, they would go away from the girls. It was
Wow.
interesting to see, but I
You're
couldn't
almost
do
like
it.
a hero to those girls in a way,
It was kind
probably.
of like scary, but I couldn't really do anything. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was just, now she's with me, fuck off, right? So that white hotel I was telling you about. So anyway, this one guy. So this young girl, I knew her for I don't know how many months, and she was traumatized by it. Anyway, he was mad at her because she just didn't want to do what she was told, and he put a hot curling iron inside her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and she got rushed to the hospital, whatever. I
Oh my God.
went mental. So I went mental. So that hotel is right by the Hooker Harvey's. I'm at the Hooker Harvey's, and I'm going crazy, and I decided I'm going to charm this guy, and I'm going to get revenge. And I charmed him, and I went to the hotel, and I started, doing the nasty, and I attempted to take off his appendage. And then I ran It was all over the walls, like all over the walls.
Oh,
I
wow.
ran back to Hooker Harvey's. I'm sitting on the concrete covered in fucking blood. I didn't know what I was thinking. I didn't know what I was doing. I seen the ambulances down the road. I knew what I did. And there was cops and everything. I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to get caught.
I mean, I don't blame you. Like, these people they're pedophiles and they're trafficking you guys, and they just horrifically assaulted somebody that you were going through this with.
Could not take it. That was the difference between me and her.
Oh my gosh.
I saw that she couldn't take it. If she was someone who could have took it, or not take the curling iron, I mean,
Nobody could take that. No.
Yeah, like I would have still tried to always be there for her, but it was like, hey, if you're chill with it and you're getting 50% and whatever, you know, like just whatever, right?
It's
but
just the way, it's survival, right? Like, it's one of those things where you just.
Was that was.
So you just went into complete protection
Mm-hmm.
mode.
And I got arrested and I got convicted. I got sentenced to 10 years, but I only did 4. I went to Kingston 10. And
So what were you charged with? Oh, if you don't want to say any of that stuff, obviously that's personal, but that's up to you.
causing bodily harm, lure by deceit or something like that, and that's it. Just those 2. Those were the ones I was convicted of.
And you were supposed to do 10 years and you only did 4?
So yeah. So what happened was during the 4 years, I started studying in the law library, and I had a lot of women in that prison that went through hell, and they were older women. Like, these were mothers, you know, and I was still a baby. Not a baby, kind of, you know. But
Well, I mean, it's not like you had a regular upbringing either, so I'm sure your maturity, you had street maturity.
yeah,
You had street smarts, but
when I joke sometimes, like, bitches were going down on me when I was doing time. Like, I wasn't, you know, whatever.
gotta stay optimistic, right?
It wasn't a horrible time. Like, I laid eyes on Carla Mocha, though. But
But you were also in a space where you were safer than you were on the streets, I'm sure. And you had a meal 3 times a day, you had a roof over your head, you had a bed to go into, you weren't getting beat up every day by these men and like sold off and stuff. So, I mean, jail can be a savior for people.
The guards were shady, but they were fair. Like, I know it sounds sick, but like, you could give them a service, so to speak, and they'd give you
So many dirty people on
cannabis
that.
or something, you know. Like, there was a good it was a trade-off. They were traders, guards.
Well, it's sad because like you had been trafficked since you were 12, and you know, I'm sure, well, not everyone knows everybody's story, but like for them to go in and like take advantage, I feel like in authority figures with that, they're taking advantage of you full on. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And if you're traumatized already and stuff and young, like you've got this attitude about you, you know, you can kind of tell when teens and kids have been through certain things because of the way that they act. And I'm sure I'm guessing you might have had some hypersexualization going on too, right? So
absolutely. So I got out, and through the whole time I had Elizabeth Fry Society, which is an agency, and Native Women's Center, different agencies that would bring me my daughter, and I would get to see my daughter a lot. And as soon as I got out, I got my daughter, and I started.
What year did you get? What year did you go into Kingston?
1988.
Oh, the year I was born.
So wait, no, that's not right. Yeah,
so it was 1980. You were 12.
13.
11 going on 12.
And my daughter was born in, I don't want to say what year she was born on this app, but okay, hang on, let me just do the math.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just like, timeline.
88. Or 89.
So 1988, you went in to do time.
Carla was coming in when I was leaving, Carla Homolka. But anyway.
So about 1992 is when you got out?
But before 90, oh yeah, that makes sense. So about 91, I got out because, so what happened was, I'm now on parole, right? And my parole officer knew everything. But my parole officer also kind of had a crush on me. So I'm living in this woman's home with my daughter. Like, it was my place, but it was like a women's home, right? And I'm living with my daughter, and he's phoning me at night. It's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I go to dinner, da, da, da. I ended up with my parole officer for fucking 2 years. I would go to his cottage. His brother-in-law was a crown attorney. I mean, we would tell people we met. I was working at the Bay, like, I kind of think I thought I loved him, but in the same breath, he knew exactly what the fuck I went through, right? So I ended up conceiving a child with
all
him.
These men around you just taking advantage of you. Wow.
I conceived
Makes me want to rage.
I ended up conceiving a child with him. And whatever. So we broke up, but years later. So let's go. I want to fast track now because basically that's the gist of it, right?
Yeah, like if that's what you're comfortable talking about and everything. So, I don't want to pry too much. So
no, you can pry after, but then I'll finish up like the whole story, so to speak. So
yeah.
So like he was like, it was fucked up, right? So I got in trouble for something else. A couple of years go by, right? I already knew the law. I had read every law book in jail like you could ever read. I was passionate about law at this point. But then I got in trouble for something else. What was it? I think I assaulted somebody or something. But I got a new probation officer. Probation this time, not parole. And I said to the probation officer, I used to fuck my last parole officer. I don't give a fuck about you. Like, what, you think I give a fucking shit about this? And he looked at me like, what the fuck did you just say? I said, yeah, I used to fuck the last parole officer. I said, I even got proof, like, whatever, right? So
you got physical proof. You have a baby out of it. Like,
well, what happened was it was funny because at the time, he was when I was still with him, he was doing a conference, and this other probation officer lady kind of had a crush on him. So she had bought him a sweater. Oh, now I remember how it goes. Yeah, she had bought him a sweater. And I took the sweater, and she got assigned to me. That's right, she got assigned to me before I got in trouble the second time. So the first time while I'm still with him, he went to a different office, and I get assigned to Patricia Volpe. She had a crush on him, so I went and I told her first. I went and I showed up the report for parole wearing the sweater she fucking gave him, and then I fucking told her everything. And that fucking cunt, I come back a month later or a week later or whatever it was, and she shows me this paper, and she's like, look, nothing happened, right? I didn't write anything down. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't fucking care, right? But then anyway, a few years later, then it goes by, and I tell another probation officer, and he had to report. And the reason, so here's the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was about to ask, did this guy even get in trouble for this shit? I mean, he clearly took advantage of his client.
So
or whatever
what happened was, considered. I was seeing a psychiatrist, and he was amazing, but he had took his own life. And what he had taught me was what conflict of interest and abuse of power was and all that. So at this point in my life, I'm like maybe, 27 or something like that. I don't know. Whatever, right?
Oh, yeah, because you never got taught these things. You were never taught, like, these red flags and what to look for in the psychological tactics and shit.
I taught it all myself. I was very self-taught. So after
through lived experience, yeah.
Yeah, and when he took his own life, I was like, fuck this. So that's when I told him, and then I got a lawyer, a specialist in civil litigation, took my case. I had an abortion with the probation officer's child, and he had come to Ottawa because
the original parole officer.
Yeah, the original parole officer, and so there was proof in that. Like, he had to sign me out. He signed me out of the hospital. The brother-in-law admitted that I was at the cottage. I described his mother's house, the cottage, everything. Right. So a couple of years went by. I sued as I'm telling my story, and I have a lawyer, I sued the Ministry of Public Safety and the probation officer for this stuff, right? So
good.
Go after deep pockets. His boss was the Ministry of Public Safety. That's who the boss is of probation and parole, right?
And you said you were about 27 years old when You
Yeah,
did
about
this?
20. Yeah, yeah. Wait, let me think. My second daughter was, wait, my son. No, I probably was 30 something. But either way, so,
Well, either you weren't a kid, like you
no,
were
I'm
an adult.
50, I'm 55 now, right? So it was like way back, right?
Yeah.
So it was very therapeutic. But I settled. So what I did was I settled out of court for almost $100,000. And
Wow.
at this point now, I've got two kids. I'm living in native housing. I've got a beautiful 4 bedroom. I blew that money so fast. I spoiled all the kids in the complex. I was taking my kids on helicopter rides. I didn't fucking
Well,
know
you wanted
money.
to give them the life that you were never
Yeah, man.
awarded,
I
and then you also got
spoiled.
to live that too. Like you were almost living
Yeah.
vicariously through that too,
Oh
right?
yeah. When I won, like when I settled, I walked for miles. I didn't even know. I was just walking. I was like, wow, this is wild. And then I remember getting the two different checks. So he had to pay 45,000 of it, and the ministry had to pay the other part. And then I didn't like banks and whatever, and it was a hard time, but I ended up getting it all in cash. Yeah, I'm just a kind of person,
Wow.
but
You must have been intimidating.
I wasn't accepting no. It was a what do you call it? Some kind of check, a certified check, and the bank's like, well, we don't have that much money in here. I'm like, well, whatever. I'll come out 3 days in a row. Just give me my fucking money.
Order it. You're the bank.
Yeah, order those bills, man. But yeah. So then I because of the specialist in civil litigation that sued the ministry, I did a lot of the work for him because he was doing this pro bono, and he was just telling me how fucking smart I was and how well versed I was and how good I was at doing A, B, and C and doing the fine print and whatever. So here you go, all you people listening here that think that I never went to law school and blah, 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 and I'm not a fucking lawyer. Well, this fucking specialist in civil litigation skipped a process. I took a little bit of a course, and then I did the LSAT, and I passed with flying fucking colors.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you had access to the law library when you were doing time, right? So you had a lot
Yeah,
of time to read
yeah. So
and learn.
people hear me say, "Oh, I say I was a lawyer," blah blah blah. I never wanted to be a lawyer to make money or anything. I wanted the ability to help anybody I wanted, whenever I wanted, at any time for free. I never took a dime for anybody I ever helped. I helped people with landlord-tenant court, which is paralegals could do. I helped people with family law. I helped people with civil litigation. I helped people with criminal law. And I was
Good for
allowed
you.
to act on their behalf. I became a surety. I took kids in. I was a provisionary care provider. And I know I sound like I'm saying this with an attitude, Lisa Bella,
Well,
but there was a
people
lot of
have
people.
discredited you a lot.
Yes, exactly. And it gets on my nerves because it's like, oh, you fucking idiots. Like certain people just, I want to throat punch them. Like certain one that I scared her off the app because she went and fucking called Gladu Court and said I was faking being a lawyer or whatever. And I heard their voice because, yeah, I am part of the fucking system and they all do know me and I'm very well loved and I'm very well respected in the fucking
Right. People don't know what now whoever's been listening now knows some of what you've been through,
Well,
what
they were
you've
trying to
been
say, well,
comfortable to
what
share.
law school did you go to? Blah blah blah. Well, there's other ways around it, And yes, you can have a conviction for unaliving and become a lawyer. People were saying, "Oh, you can't be a lawyer with that kind of criminal record." Yeah, you can. There's
People
ways around
represent
it,
themselves all the time. Like
and that
if they are doing time,
self-represented.
they sit in the law library and they will literally dedicate their entire every
Yeah, and
minute of
that's
their
really
day to
yeah.
learning the law.
But I actually had the degree. I got the degree. I just didn't. I didn't want it for anything more than to have it to help people. I didn't want it to be a lawyer and work in a law firm. I ended up working for Aboriginal Legal Services, and
You probably just wanted to know what your rights were and how to because you didn't trust anybody probably at this
exactly,
point,
and
right? You could only
many
trust
people.
yourself.
My goal was to help people, and I helped people through successful civil litigation claims. I helped people uh, in criminal court, mostly bail. I was mostly passionate about bail. I still am. Like bail court, the first process, and making sure that whomever is going to get a fair chance in that process. That was my passion, was bail court and civil litigation. But
That's
yeah,
amazing that everything that you've been through and what you just want
That's
to
me
help
and the
other
pig, Scotty,
people, you
too,
know?
Fraser. Sorry, I'm just answering Scotty. So
Oh,
that's
that's
me
okay.
on the right and on the left.
Did you want to explain a little bit of? He might have
Mm,
just entered, but you don't have to. I mean, there's a caption right there too. So,
if you want to
um,
read the caption, but yeah, actually she got the ages wrong, so I'm 13 on the right.
oh, my bad.
Um, no, that's okay.
I
But that's
apologize. I was reading your message. I must have just got it mixed up. I'm sorry.
no, that's totally cool. It's all the same. It's roughly the same age anyway. But
So
that's
switch the ages around with the pictures, and that's the accurate.
it's
So
all,
you're 13 with the Playboy Bunny
yeah,
shirt on.
and 14 at the one at the hospital. So the one on the left, that was my third abortion.
So
The one on
sorry.
the right is when I got arrested, or caught by the cops, and they're supposed to protect me, but I was arrested for like being a runaway or whatever. I don't know. Children, they took
And then
that
they just
picture.
took advantage of you.
Yeah, that's what I looked like. But
You're a beautiful girl,
oh man,
you know.
I don't know. Those
But
pictures out.
not. I didn't mean that in any kind of derogatory or uncomfortable way. I'm just saying, like, you know, like you're a pretty girl, and I'm so sorry that people took advantage of you like this. Nobody should have ever touched you. Nobody should have ever touched you. And I'm sorry that you got ripped away from your family after
So
such a horrible, sudden tragedy. Like,
yeah. Well, after that, so now I've had by this point I've got four children, and I started taking in children. So not children, let's say, but 13, 14 year olds. All of them I knew. So
minors.
my nieces and nephews, or friends of my nieces and nephews, like whatever. I just
Aw.
I became I wasn't allowed to be a foster mother because of my past with children's aid and with my criminal record. But what I was allowed to be was a provisionary care provider through Native Child and Family Services. So a lot
Wow.
of times when there was someone, either my other kids already knew, or I knew their mother was going through a hard time, I would become their care provider. And I would never accept the money. So I would get paid, like say, $1,200 a month per kid. I would give that $1,200 a month to the kid. They would budget their money, buy groceries, whatever, shoes, whatever they wanted. And they're all still, they still come to my door to this day. They're all still my kids. They're
That's
all
amazing.
Like
You gave them a
26.
sense of independence and you gave them protection. So that's obviously,
Yeah. And
you
they're
became the
my,
adult that you needed when you were little. And
yeah, in our culture, it's called like a Mama Dukes. So I'm a Mama
oh,
Dukes. They're my baby Dukes. So,
oh, I love that.
and they're all like, I stopped doing that after about, I guess, 12 kids altogether. I say I have 12 children, but 4 are biological. Right.
Okay.
So,
Wow, you got
yeah,
a, yeah, you showed me a picture. I don't want to like throw all their faces up on here though, because you know how people can be. But
yeah, I
you
actually
showed
got,
me a picture of your family. If you want to show it, go for it. You know, but
yeah, I
that
can't, I find
you're
it.
surrounded by so much love.
Yeah.
I see the smiles and the closeness of you guys in that picture, and it's amazing. I'm so happy for
An
you for
easy
that.
time. Like, I mean, having fucking 14, 15, 16-year-olds that are already troubled, and like every other week I had cops at my door, like bringing them home because they were caught like hanging on top of the rooftop of a convenience store smoking weed or this or that or whatever, just being
And then you're
mischievous,
looking at your life at that
mother.
age, and you're just like, ooh, that's like nothing compared to the shit
Yeah.
that I was dealing with.
And I would have to deal with their processes, so their court hearings were like, because they were in the custody of Children's Aid or Native Child, so I would have to deal with,
Did
their
that ever
annual.
scare you when they were in care of them? Were you ever just like did that ever like bring
No,
back?
because they were in my custody. So once they were
Okay.
in my custody, I never worried about nothing. There was a couple of the girls that had already experienced some trafficking and whatnot, but one, Kayla, she's a nurse now. The other's happily with her husband, and they have 3 kids, and she's a full-time mom. And then my boys are all doing great. One's a welder.
I was about to ask, like,
Away.
how are you doing today, like personally and professionally? But I guess you're kind of answering that right now, right? So,
One passed away from self-unaliving.
oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
One passed away from a crime the cops committed. I can't really say, but she basically supposedly fell in front of a train, but she was a witness to a crime that she was about to testify for. And then I mentioned to you my other son who passed away from the COVID jabs because he
Oh
had
my
diabetes.
gosh.
And,
So you've lost
and
3 children then?
yeah, and
Like
he
living children that, yeah.
yeah he
Oh my goodness.
was forced into the first jab, had a stroke, second jab, had a stroke, and we buried him about 6 months ago.
My heart breaks for you.
But I know it is sad.
You've been through so much shit. Like, I'm trying not to get myself choked up. My eyes are all watery right now. But
Oh, that's okay.
I think that you are an incredible woman. Like, I didn't know you went through, like, I know you were trafficked because you talked about that, but like, I think this is the most in-depth conversation you and I have had about this.
It's the most in-depth I've had with anybody on this app at all, period.
Well,
Like,
thank you for trusting me with this. Thank
no,
you
I'm
for,
happy. I'm happy I did it.
you're a very strong woman. And I know you know that, but just like woman to woman, even if I wasn't a woman and I was a man, I'd say the same. Like, I wish I could give you a hug right now. And I think that you are an amazing person. And, you know, for what you've been through and for you to still stand up and want to help people and to adopt people out of that system because you know what it's like, you know, and for the losses you've been through. I mean, you were telling me earlier in Messenger about your friend that had been murdered in the place that you had one of your children, right, where you were living. And like, you've been through so much shit and you still try to help people. Like, that's amazing.
That's what bothers. So, like, I want to bring up Samantha, right? And talking about, so she's saying how, like, I'm narcissistic. All I see in someone like Samantha is narcissism. People talk about empathy. I am so fucking full of empathy, like, to the point where, like, I had to stop doing a lot of the advocacy because even back, like, 7, 8, 10 years ago when I basically stopped, all my kids were grown. I was like, okay, it's my time, right? But I had to stop too because there was like this influx of self-unaliving in my community and I couldn't handle it. Like the older people, the youth, like there was just an epidemic of it going on about 8, 10 years ago, right? And I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm like way too empathetic. I have a fucking huge heart, but I also am fucking psycho and I'm fucking crazy. And when certain people, like fucking people on this app that I want to throat punch, they think, oh, holy shit, Spot is crazy. Well, yeah, I'm fucking crazy, you know?
But not crazy. You're not crazy as in like I don't even think crazy is the right way to put it. I think that you've been through so much shit. You know what it's like to be living in like the worst conditions around the worst people. You've been through some of the most evil things in this universe. Like you've experienced some of the most evil shit. So how are you going to walk away from that being like, oh, the world is all rainbows and butterflies and I'm just going to show my belly to everybody who disrespects me? Fuck no. You almost cut a guy's dick off because he assaulted your friend with a hot curling iron. And I hope that I hope he can't use it.
Now, before they thought, oh, look, heroic. Actually, that's what happened in my appeal when I got out early was they said vigilantism is not something we advocate for and blah, blah, blah. But all things considering, etc. and so forth, that's kind of how I got out. Like, was basically, it was
the crime that you committed in order to get.
Yeah. And that girl testified. And actually, the guy, he still can't get it up to this day. I don't know about this.
Good.
Day, up until 15 years ago, he still couldn't get it up. So
good.
Yeah.
Justice was served. That was the best justice that could have been served in that time. Anybody who takes advantage of... I shared
it with some people, and then now they use it against me or whatever, right? But it's kind of like, I don't give a shit, because they were all thought it was great what I did, like, when they liked me. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Nat down there... Sorry. Nat JT down there says, pieces to the spotted turtle puzzle. This has been interesting. I'd say she's fed up, not crazy. And I agree with that. I'd say you're fed up. You're tired of this happening. You're tired of it, just seeing people go through that. I think that you're incredible for adopting all of those people out of the system. Well, I don't know if you adopted them or not, but like if you helped them
they
have a better life.
And then once they aged out, they still stayed mine, right?
You're amazing. Like, do you have any messages for people who might be going through the similar situation, or maybe someone who, like, what would you say to somebody who I don't know, who's going through something similar or knows somebody who's going through something similar? Like, is there anything that you want to say to people?
My big message, what I've learned about, like, my life was in the 80s, okay? So pre-social media, pre-anything. Everything had to be out in the open. I want more people to be aware of what's going on indoors. I want people to be more aware of those little details like 18. If the ad says 18, it's whatever. I want parents to not allow teenagers, especially boys or girls, to be on fucking social media alone in their bedroom. My grandkids are only on social media around their parents. Like no, don't.
And it's
trust
not even
these
always safe
teenagers.
around your parents either, because there's so many subliminal things, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
my two kids are my adult, like my daughter and son-in-law, and they know how to put those. They do as much as they can on the tablet or whatever to limit.
Like block that shit and
Block that shit. But in the same breath, still focus on other things. Get kids out on the fucking outside doing things. If your daughter said she's got this boyfriend and he's so great and he's a few years older, blah blah blah, don't just easily believe everything. Oh, it's scary, man. But also. So yeah, because we've only thought about this today, I want to do a part 2 in a few weeks. I want to do a bit more research because I do know, I've always been aware and I've always been asked these kind of questions. Mainly is I want to learn more myself about. So I know that what is it called? Roblox. The game that is dangerous.
Yes,
that's one of the most pedophile.
Yes. These Minecraft too, these little kid games, Fortnite, where all the kids are at.
But especially Roblox. There's something to do with Roblox that
I'll look it up right now. I got my computer.
Videos gravitate to Roblox.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
And then there's all those chat rooms, things like that. I know that my kids are teaching my grandkids those safeties, so that's great for me. My kids have all been, thank God, safe. But for other people, just don't be so naive. When I used to see that show, Toddlers and Tiaras, all I would ever think of was that show is for men. That show is for P3 to beat off to. Why are these mothers doing this? It made no sense to me, for fuck's sakes.
I know It's I think it was for themselves. They were living through their children. You know what I mean? It's gross.
They don't realize what they're doing, even when they're told it a million times. The mothers don't realize.
No, because those mothers will just call people who are naysayers haters.
Right. And
they're haters, and you guys don't, you just don't want my kid to be happy and be themselves and stuff. And it's no, we just don't want them to be gawked at by creepy men because you're sexualizing
them. They were able to tell, not through TV, they were able to sort of tell the type of viewers, but what they found, where they really found out, was those TikTok or YouTube or Facebook family.
The vloggers.
And they would look at the 100,000 followers, and 97,000 of them were men.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, you see, even on here, if you go and you're scrolling, and you see pictures of the family people there, it's an innocent photo of or video of their kid, I don't know, playing in the pool or something like that, or doing a headstand, but they have a diaper and a t-shirt on or something. You think it's innocent, but you look at these and it's the amount of favorites. You may have, 30 likes and 10 comments, but the favorites and the shares are in the thousands.
Yeah.
And that's because you're not giving your child access to the internet when you put them on it or give them a device. You're giving the internet access to your child.
Yeah, and I think it's sad that for Facebook, my daughter's always putting the pictures of the grandkids and all that, and it's great and all that. But in the same breath, if someone's attracted to a particular look, then you got to take the chance that that's going to be screenshotted. So
the things I uncovered under the Meta stuff with my child protection organization that I do, there's an entire sex trafficking ring happening on Instagram. It's
Yep.
these men that are saying that they're recruiting kids for modeling and acting and, all this stuff. And they're using pictures of child models that they've just stolen from other people. And they never really post, maybe there'll be 5 pictures posted, if that. They have a lot of people that are following them. They're not following a lot, but their stories are caked with child porn. Caked. We tried, my whole team, we've tried to reach out to Meta to try to like do something. We've got 2 pedophiles behind bars because of this, but Meta, instead of doing anything, they shut down our accounts. And we had to start our accounts up again. We had to start new accounts.
I watched a Senate hearing in the United States where they had the different, like they had Zuckerberg, those other 3 people for different things, had to answer questions, and Zuckerberg had to stand up and apologize to like hundreds of parents that were in the Congress, in the Senate that testimony day, for him not doing what he should have done. And because some of the people, like all those parents had kids that had been ended up being lured or trafficked because of him not doing anything about whatever it is, whatever one he had. I don't think it was Facebook. I think Zuckerberg had another one. But anyway, like they are very aware of it, but then they've got protections. And yeah, I've watched a lot of Senate hearings on the dangers, and they are trying to change it, but it's almost like they don't want to. Like, how can you find? Okay, they can block me from posting anything about Hunter Biden's laptop 4 years ago instantly, even stop me from sending it to you in text, but they can't stop fucking child porn. Come on, make it make sense.
Because they're all involved.
Yep.
They're all involved. So, like, this wasn't, like, you didn't have to worry so much about the internet when you were going through this. Do you think that it would, like, could you imagine you going through this with the internet included as well? Do you think you would have ended up on, like, the other side of the world or something?
I don't know. I know.
Like, did you ever get taken out of Toronto? Did you ever, like, get places that weren't?
Ottawa, and only Ottawa. And actually, I hitchhiked to California for like 3 or 4 months.
You what? You hitchhiked to California?
Yeah, with 2 truckers. And the crazy thing is, me and my friend went and hitchhiked to California. Her dad lived there. And the truckers that took us from Canada to California were perfect gentlemen. Like, perfect gentlemen.
Wow.
So I have a hot spot for like truckers, for biker type people, for alpha males. And there's a reason for it, because those visually appearing men or even that type of employment were never really a fucking issue. Like, I mean this sincerely. They are real fucking men.
So the ones that have the most stigma, like, oh, you're scary, you probably beat women, and you probably, like, do things to kids, those are the ones that actually aren't doing those things.
Exactly.
It's like the businessmen and, like the fucking teachers and the cops and
exactly. Suit and ties.
The people you wouldn't expect.
All the people you would see at a stag party for, like, the office guys. Like, they work in an office, whatever. Like, yeah, no.
Well, bringing that up, actually, because you were saying that you were on the higher end, like you were paid like $200, I guess you could say. You were saying,
yeah, in the 80s, it's like 1,000 now.
Yeah. So, did you ever deal with people that were higher up, like elite people, ever, like politicians? Like
I'll tell you,
celebrities, anything like that?
I'll tell you one who was a sicko, Burton Cummings.
Who's that?
From the Guess Who?
Burton Cummings.
Burton Cummings, the Guess Who. The
Guess Who?
Yeah.
And you met him, or did you you provide service?
Yep.
Oh, wow. And you were a minor at this time, and he knew that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Oh, yeah, he is the lead of the Guess Who. Wow.
Yeah. Barely 14 with him. I mean,
he's currently touring. He's currently touring.
He wasn't brutal. There was a time, actually, when he toured where I was going to go...
well, he's a pedophile, so that's...
introduce myself to him. Like, he wouldn't have recognized me. Like, I think I was 45 at the time. I'm like, oh, look who's coming to town. Right?
Was that... Where was that then? Was
Uh,
that in Kingston or Ottawa or Toronto?
no, I think it was here in Toronto. I think he was performing here in Toronto, or maybe it was Kingston. Because I lived in Kingston for a while when I got out of prison, and then I was like dating a. I fell in love with a guy who'd been in prison since he was 18, or not, pardon me, since he was 20 years old. I met him at a prison social. He was like the king shit in the prison, and he was in for unaliving 3 people in like gang related unalivings back like 30 years
Wow.
before. And I fell in love with this fucking guy. I visited him for a couple of years. I was the king shit in Kingston. I would go to, I had trailer visits with him. I would visit him 3 times a week. But oh, well, what made me fall in love with this guy was, well, because he got life, right? He was never going to see the light of day, even after 25 years, right? So he had already been in like 25 years. And at that point, he had already unalived like 4 pedos in prison.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he's a hero.
He's my hero. He was gorgeous, like fucking gorgeous. And he was
Aw.
the king shit, right? So then I'm on the outside, being the king shit on the outside, because I would do all the shady business that would get brought into the prisons, like smuggling and all that. Like I was criminal. I was a criminal a lot of my life, like doing crimes like that, right?
Yeah, but you had no, like, if you didn't commit crimes and stuff, not that I'm condoning committing crimes, but like those circumstances is a little bit different. Like you can't, in order to survive, you can't exactly follow the
Yeah,
law
I
all the
wasn't
time.
going to become a secretary all of a sudden, and just because I knew law and all that was not a life I wanted.
No,
I
when
didn't
you, well,
be
when you relied on the law to do their fucking job, they didn't.
right.
So
And
how the fuck
that's-
are you supposed to trust that they're gonna help
that
you?
psychiatrist who convinced me about abuse of power, and then I was kind of like, wait, I've got this record that's got me criminalized for being a victim. Like, so I always had this mindset of I'm going to do everything against the grain. I'm not going to, like, I guess, yeah, like I've never filed taxes. And
It's your prerogative. I mean, you're also native too, so I mean,
well,
technically.
no, you're still supposed to. You're still supposed to.
No, I don't know how that all
I never
works.
have. And because I never have, they don't know I exist in the tax world. Like, I've never collected child tax money or anything. I guess that would have been a benefit because I would have got like hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. But
Josie has a question. I don't know if you are willing to.
yeah, we're good. I'm good. Like, I'm actually.
Do you feel good about this?
I feel really great, but I'm also sweating a bit from like. I guess we've been doing this for an hour and a half. It was really
Yeah.
great. Like,
Yeah. Aw, I'm glad. I thought it went really well too.
when you
like-
appeal this time stop.
And you're doing okay though? Like you're not like
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Good. Cuz I wanted to make sure I conducted this properly cuz I mean like I said before, I'm not an expert. I don't do
No,
this stuff
totally.
often, but
It was totally great.
awesome.
I'm wondering if there's like any watch parties going on, or how
Fuck
many
'em.
people are on the outside.
I hope
looking
there is.
in.
I hope there is, and I hope they're
Maybe I'm
learning
gonna
something.
start either like talking shit about me after, or oh, she said something and that had to have been a lie or something. Like, no, nothing. The thing is, as long as you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Like, I might
Well,
be
yeah, the
stabbed
truth doesn't
on
change.
8 times, but yeah. People
So-
did try to hunt down my crime, but I found it. I know where to find it, but it's hard to find on Google. And my name's very famous, like not famous, popular. But I got all the clippings. I might actually show you them when I find them because I took pictures. But I went to the what do you call it, the Toronto Reference Library, which is like the big library. It's like where it has every single newspaper clipping ever made and stuff. Because I was like,
okay. It's like an archive library.
yeah, an archive library, newspapers, everything, right? And for whatever reason, I've tried to find a few things on the internet. I don't know if anybody else can. I mean, if they do, if people start trying, and so anybody who's going to try and find things like they did try and find last year, if you did find anything, or if you do, like, can you let me know? Because I would love to have that.
Well, yeah, you're trying to figure out pieces of your own story too, right? Because like during that time, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that just draws blank because your mind does things to protect yourself from what you're going through. And
Yep.
it purposely like blocks those things out because they're just too traumatic.
Tried searching, like even on Canley's a good source to find cases and all that. Like, but yeah,
Josie
you have
has
to
a
go on the
sorry.
Wayback Machine on the internet or something. Like,
Or
I know that
BitChute, yeah.
buy a membership. Like, say I bought a membership for the archives of the Toronto Star. Let's say I did that years ago, but it was for looking for other stuff that had not to do with my stuff. Um, but it didn't even occur to me to look for my stuff. But you can buy like a membership, and then you can read every single newspaper ever printed since 1827, kind of thing. But if you just go to Toronto Star without buying a membership, then you're only going to get like the past 3 years or something. I don't know how it works to do research, but if anybody,
I mean, I don't look into people's lives like that. I just started doing an ancestry thing, and I'm finding records on the website that I signed up for and pay for. So,
I know my daughter
finding
could.
ship records and things, that's pretty cool,
I
and
know my
marriage
daughter
licenses,
could.
but
My daughter's brilliant with that kind of shit, but I don't want her to. I don't want her. I don't even want to. Yeah, I wouldn't be letting my kids do that for me. I mean, if they want to do it on their own, just to know about mom, or they do it like long after I'm not alive or whatever, that's on them. Like, I'm not going to ask them to do it for me. But if any of you, whatever people, yeah.
Josie wants to know when you appeal, does time I don't think, Josie, I'm not quite sure if you're asking in regards to her story or if you're asking in regards to something you're going through personally. But
No,
she says, when you
I
appeal,
think
does time stop?
so. When I appealed, I got I it was about I think 6 months. So it was like 3.5 years in, 6 months. I put in an appeal. At 6 months, it was 4 years. And at that point, at the court case, they gave me time served. So I had to finish the sentence on parole. So from 4 years to the 10-year mark was parole. But then because of the situation that happened on parole, I got that sort of taken
Right.
down. So, yeah.
So, like, when you were on parole, that's when your parole officer took advantage and
Yeah,
you ended up
right
having
after
to,
2 years,
yeah.
and then yeah, so
And then you got a lawyer and you sued the Ministry of Public Safety and the
yeah,
probation officer and you settled out of court for 100. I was making notes,
yeah.
being professional. I actually genuinely want to do this kind of stuff. So, like,
No,
I hope that,
it's great. Like, listen, Lisa Bella, you're someone who is very well aware of facts over like feelings and bullshit and all that, and you know
thank
how
you.
to do your shit. And if you're passionate about something, you're gonna do it like A+, kind of like what's her face? What's their face? Sammy Sourdog. She's passionate about or they're passionate about what they're passionate about. You know what I'm saying? So you're passionate about what you're passionate about. You're going to do the best fucking job you possibly can. And I'm like that as well.
Thank
That's
you.
why, as a lawyer, I never wanted to like some random guy says, "Oh, I got an impaired driving. I want your services." No, I didn't never do it to do that. I didn't ever do it to make money. It was just to have that ability. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I appreciate the kind words and back at you, honestly. Like,
I think we should. We could definitely.
we can start taking questions, and if you want to, I can just bring people up and we can just shoot the shit. Unless there's something else you wanted to, we should,
No, I'm good. I want to.
resources. Do you know any resources that are good ones? Like, is there any websites or phone numbers or anything that helped you
No,
during,
for me, like,
or that
yeah,
could help others?
that's something like I want to start. You and I both like look into it because I never thought to think of what I could recommend now. Like back then, there wasn't really.
Here, I'm going to look up some things right now since my computer's in front of me. I'm going to look up resources in Canada for human trafficking victims. Okay, so there is a hotline. I'm going to make a little poll thing here, but there's a hotline, 1-833-900-1010, and that's the Canadian Human Trafficking Hotline.
Okay.
7 days a week. I'm going to write that in a little sticker, though. One second.
So there was three agencies They don't doesn't exist anymore because the laws changed. But it was like a agency to help uh, SMEX workers.
There's the Ali Global Foundation. You mentioned that, didn't you? Or did no?
No. And then there was also what did I use before? I forget. Yeah, but whatever I would
The
have
Joy Smith
picked up
Foundation.
back then wouldn't have been the same. There's can't remember. The Maple Leaf Gardens basically had a lot of peep radio coaches, and they used to take advantage of people from Regent Park, and I knew a few of them. And one of my friends, he's the reason why the suicide bridge got the netting because his peep radio got like 2 years less a day, so he jumped off the bridge, and then
Oh my gosh.
peep radio ended up they redid his sentence and gave him like 4 years. But he's got an organization in his name. I'll remember it. That's another good one for men. It's men. Men are,
I can't even put a sticker. It puts it under review.
and then boys are also.
Thank you for putting that in, Illusion. I don't know how to pin. For some reason, I can't pin. But maybe, can you try clicking on Illusion's comment and pinning it since you have mod powers?
Translate, mute, comment settings.
I don't know how to pin it, but I want to get it pinned to my...
Mute. Block.
Nope, not mute.
I know that. No, it's not.
It's not showing. Thank you for putting that in, Illusion. That's the hotline for Canada's human trafficking hotline. I did put a sticker up, but it's under review, so it won't show. And it looks like so the Canadian government website obviously has resources, but can you trust them all that much? Because they're kind of involved in all of this. So there is the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking. That's Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking.ca. There's the Joy Smith Foundation, which talks about like prevention and also does intervention and gives support to survivors.
It would be like for like John Howard Society, Elizabeth Fry Society. They were societies, but they were more for people getting out of jail. But those people also went through a lot of hell. So they, you know what I mean? They had services to help for the hell that you went through.
Right. Do you feel like what do you ever... Okay, hold on. Let me figure out how to ask this question. It's an impulse question, so I'm like, wait, hold on. I got to rewind and make sure I word this right. Do you do anything with outreach at all to help people who have gone through trafficking now? Like, or are you just focused on your own stuff and just trying to heal and move forward in that way? Like you kind of...
So what I
like, are you involved in any way?
Yeah, so what I do is the past 3 years since we started the fire in the park. Right now I'm having a little bit of a beef with one of the chicks there, but she's going to be gone soon. But whatever, I love her to death, but right now she's annoying the fuck with me. But yeah, there's always...
Don't even pay any mind to that. Obviously, somebody is reporting you.
Yeah.
Whoever's reporting, please stop trying to silence her. The whole point of this live is for her to have her voice to speak up about what she's been through and how she's helping people. So kindly fuck off. Go flick your bean in a dirty closet or something. I don't know. Just leave us alone.
Look at that. Love from Lisa Foundation sounds pleasing, but you know what the crazy thing is, Illusion? Is both her and I, our names are Lisa.
It's true. Yeah. It's a Lisa thing.
No, but yeah, so I deal with whenever something happens that gets brought to the sacred fire space at the park, I'm the first to get a call. I know like all the for natives, right? Like all the programs to get you like in housing and get you funding and things like that. But
that's amazing.
But in regards to, well, yeah, not too many. I've been able to help through the sex trafficking recently. I don't think it's happening as much in my community because I wouldn't know about it. But also, I don't mean just my community as Indigenous people, but like the park all in general.
Just in the area that you're in.
The area like in the 80s was you couldn't walk 5 feet without seeing a sex worker.
But it's
Right?
also different now too, because the sex work isn't
Exactly. So,
necessarily on this. They're not standing on street corners like they were.
right.
I mean,
So
some of
there's
them
one
do,
girl.
obviously, but
There's one girl, and you always see her with her man, and I always see her with her man, and she's always got like a black eye or whatever, and she's
ugh,
fucked up. So she's still like, there's still the odd one on the street, and her man is like a creepy guy, and we try and help her, but then she wants to go back to him. So like, you can't stop them from going back. You can just be there when they're ready to leave.
right.
I mean, like, we try, or we try to scare the guy or whatever, but the guy doesn't care. He'll take a beating, and then they'll run and go hide in another part of the street and, do their thing. It's really sad.
And like we were saying earlier too, like it's not just sex trafficking that exists. There's labor trafficking, there's forced marriage, organ trafficking, bonded labor. So that's also like debt bondage almost, like you're just
not exactly
because of money.
But also underage marriages, arranged marriages that
Yes.
aren't wanted, genital mutilation for the girls, like not trans. I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Stuff.
Yep.
Like, those are all my passions. Definitely.
Well, I'm really glad that we had this conversation tonight. I think this was
Yeah.
successful. We had about, I think, 30 or 40 people in here. I mean, numbers don't really matter, but it does when you're trying to get something. It does, yeah. In this case, it does, because we're trying to get a really good, important message out.
Well,
so thank you.
The people on the outside, and then the people that will be talking about it, whether positively or negatively, over the next few days. And no matter what, it's all good.
Let them
On that regard, and that just shows people's true colors. And like I said, if anybody does find anything, like,
who's going to sit there and talk shit about somebody who just told their survival story about being trafficked as a minor?
oh well, we know
Like,
some people, specifically one person,
yeah, and those
find a
people,
way to make it about her, and I don't know, it's kind of weird. She's weird. Fuck, she's weird.
Illusion says, I hope this helped you. Like,
It did
you
help
found
me.
this was therapeutic?
It was very therapeutic. I feel great. I know that there's a lot of people that have heard this, heard Spotted Turtle on this algorithm for a couple of years, and knew little bits and pieces, and know who hates me and who likes me, and who hated me and then likes me, and vice. Lisa Bella goes through it all too. So you guys both got to see me and her, together in action, and I'm happy I did it.
I'm happy you did it too, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for trusting me with such vulnerable situations that happen to you, and I hope that we can continue to do this in the future. I think this was awesome.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we will. I think we're gonna. This is like what do you call it? Like, man, my brain is working again right now.
That's okay.
That's the reason why I had to stop doing a lot of work, because of my MS caused my cognitive abilities to decline, and I wasn't able to always articulate myself the way I wanted to. So,
I think you did a wonderful job here. I think you articulated yourself beautifully.
yeah, thanks.
I really do. I hope I didn't interrupt too much.
Nope.
That is something I am working on as well, with my
me too.
neurological shit. Like, I'm very impulsive with things. It's almost like an itch, and I got to learn to scale it back sometimes. So
No, I think when the first time you do something, and then it's like the very first episode of Trailer Park Boys was pretty fucking shitty, like visually and everything, right? So we do this a few times, we're gonna get it right down pat. It'll be perfect.
yay. Well, did you want to have some people come up and just like shoot the shit, or did you want to get off and take a breather? Like, if you
Anybody wants to come up, otherwise, I want to take a breather, see what's going on the app, and
yeah, I mean, we can. Does anybody want to come up and say anything or ask any questions, or? Because if not, then.
And I want to thank everybody in the comments and everybody who stayed, and everybody who heard this stuff, and everybody can thank Samantha for
Yes,
being
thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Samantha. I love you, Samantha. Yeah.
I'm sure she's got a story to tell too, but she can tell it to somebody else.
No, I'm just saying, like, she claims the IQ of 140, right? But she can't even wrap her head around sarcasm or fucking jokes. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of IQ of 140 doesn't grasp jokes and stuff. Like she literally thinks that you and I and fucking Blue Turtle and everybody were all in cahoots all along. She literally believes that. How do you not recognize sarcasm when you got an IQ of 140?
Well, if she's very determined to have confirmation for how she's feeling, whether she hears it as sarcasm or not, she's going to take it as legit because it's solidifying how she feels, right? So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too today.
Self-validation, I guess.
Crazy. All right. Well, this was awesome. Okay. Love you, Lisa.
I love you too, girl. And I am beyond grateful for you opening up again. Thank you so much for being so brave and doing this. And I look forward to the next time that we can sit down and talk about some things. Maybe next time we can talk about somebody's requesting. Did you still... Jojo Rebel's requesting. Did you want to talk to her real quick or did you want to peace out? Okay.
No. It's good. Let's come up first. Hey, Jojo.
Thank you, Probable Falls. Thank you, John.
Thanks for all the coins, too. Holy cow.
Yes. Oh, I was going to say, if anyone feels like gifting, I didn't want it to come off as like a grifty thing or anything, but like, if y'all feel like being kind and gifting, please give them all to her.
No, that's like awesome. Because I like giving these gifts to like certain other people that need it on this app. It's kind of fun. It gives you good endorphins to gift somebody, right?
It does. Helping people, especially when you've been through so much shit, like you get healing in helping, and I do that too. So
people from like different countries in Africa or whatever that are doing wicked dances, and they're not being trafficked, like they're not the ones that are sitting there being forced to do something, like they're literally happy. I want to send them galaxies.
Hi, Jojo. Welcome to the panel.
Hey, thanks ladies. I'm happy I was able to jump in and listen the whole time uninterrupted while I was in my new home after the house fire. But I wanted to say, one, thank you so much for being brave enough to just speak out, even if it is, you know what I mean? Like you went through this years ago and it's still going to be a fresh wound. And thank you, because you could be helping one person, you could be helping several. And this human trafficking thing, like I've never been a part of it, but it hurt my heart so much at the start of I call it the scamdemic. Hearing and learning what's going on, because years ago I kept saying, where are all these kids? Where are all these people going? Where are all these, just disappearances and deaths and never found? And that's where my train started, the journey with the knowledge of trying to learn. And to hear like Allie Carter, which I'm sure Spotted's heard of her.
Yep.
And to hear her, and I'm just like, I'm so maddened having 4 babies of my own and thinking of each one of these kids could be mine. And how can we protect them? And we're in a failed system. We're in a failed justice system. We're in a failed government system. We're in a failed everything system. And I just think like the more people talk, so thank you, Spotted, for speaking up and not being afraid to do that, because it doesn't matter how old we are, we've got to get it out. And if it helps one, or it could help so many, or it could help set these younger people with a better head on their shoulders, because, you didn't get a choice. Maybe there's someone that says, holy crap, maybe that's why this guy's talking to me like this. You never know, right? So the information
you just made me remember about all these undocumented migrants and children. Like, I am so obsessed about
325,000 children.
Yeah, and I've been really obsessed, and I'm like, it's killing me. I'm so well versed in. I watched the Senate hearing about when the border officers had to explain with tears in their eyes. Sometimes they've seen the same child multiple times being brought over, and the deplorable things that are going to happen. And I don't want to talk about it on this app because it'll fucking banned. But thank you for reminding me of that. That's something that really needs to be freaking it's not just the southern border. It's absolutely happening everywhere here in Canada.
Well, I heard Canada was number 2 in the world for child trafficking, and that our good old PM is part of it. And it's a direct hit. This is in our communities. This isn't just in our communities. So it's like, when will people step up? And that's something that I even put into a lady I follow down in, she used to go by Patriotic Mama, but she does a lot of stuff to deal with criminals and trying to protect children. And she's moving up the ranks. And I even messaged her to say, how can we actually get involved? How can we start taking people down? How can we start finding them? And doing what
I
you
know,
know,
I know.
like helping, and it just feels like, yeah, everybody's interested, but nobody really wants to do something until they have to be faced with it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I
It's
know, like,
sickening.
I was obsessed with Peter Nygaard and all the trafficking
Yes,
from him, and how many
yes.
bodies are in landfills because of Peter Nygaard, and why aren't they too good? Like, I
And
showed
what
Lisa
went
Bell,
on at
I
the
sent her a
Picton
clip.
farm?
Yeah, I sent Lisa Bella a clip of a trans
Yes.
lady in the 80s who was unalived in downtown, right?
Oh, here, I'll put it up.
A sex worker, right? Oh, no,
Really?
what a beautiful lady. She made a trans lady. She made a ton of money. Anyway, she got murdered, right? And the the guy put her. Anyway, she was in the Pickering
Oh, wait,
landfill.
that's not this girl,
That's
right?
the other girl. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
she was
sorry.
put in the Pickering landfill, and within 2 weeks, the cops were searching that fucking landfill. They never did find her, but they
Oh,
searched for weeks in the Pickering landfill. But then they made such a big deal about the landfills in
yeah.
out west because why? 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 Because if they search even that one section that they
Diversion.
the native ladies, they might find 10 more. And
Yeah,
what if they
diversion.
searched every fucking landfill?
Yep.
How many would they find?
Well, and now people are waking up, right? This is our era. If you don't wake up, then where have you been? Because look at what's happening, what we're seeing with the Picton farm. Like Trudeau's family is directly tied with that. All the unaliving rituals, it's such a big rabbit hole that is scary, but it needs to be investigated. That's why they're shutting down everything they can. The government is directly involved.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is hopeless.
Well,
But
like,
for
what?
cases like this, I'm happy to hear her speak about it because it gives me hope to keep fighting.
Yeah, exactly. And the more people that, like, for instance,
We
in the
need to be
United
pissed
States,
off.
most states have a sex offender registry, right? And they're publicly accessible. You can Google your neighborhood or your anywhere in the states and find every last one and know their exact fucking address.
Yeah,
That
here
is
they have
not
more
that
rights.
is not allowed in Canada. That
Yeah.
needs to be allowed. It maybe not knowing the exact address, but we should know whether there's 75 in this neighborhood or 45 and whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just putting this up back here because we didn't talk about her, and you had sent me this, and I don't know if you wanted to mention her or not, but this was one of your friends, you said?
Yes, she so I
If you don't want to, it's okay.
no, I will so that same hotel that I did my crime in, she
This
was
one?
she no, let's see
No?
whatever, that one, that's a good one to show. That one. Yeah. So she wasn't doing what she was supposed to, and she got a bullet between the eyes, and they kind of knew who it was. They wouldn't believe any of us at the time. Years later, I even went to the cold case squad, because there's an actual cold case program that tries to find it. They never found him. I know exactly who did that to her, but the cops didn't fucking care, and yeah, so it's unsolved. And yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I feel like I just took you back. You were like,
but it's the thing. That's the thing. Like, unsolved.
this is a very real thing. You sent me tons of pictures of people.
DNA stuff needs to be
This
more.
one.
That's the landfill. That's the trans lady when the cops. That was in '93. That's her. That's the trans lady. She was a very classy
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
sex worker.
Pass? Yeah. Well, sorry, I didn't mean for that to come off anyway, but I wouldn't even be able to tell.
Yeah, and her unaliver, I think he was not found not guilty, but the charges were dropped or something. I don't remember what happened with her. I just remember her.
This guy?
And I remember when it happened, and I remember
Is this the same here?
yeah, that's my friend. Yeah.
Oh, that's your friend. Okay, that wasn't the guy that killed that.
Well, he's my cousin. He it was back in the 80s. They convicted him. He was 17. They convicted him of unaliving a school teacher, but that school teacher was raping him for 3 years. But the courts didn't believe him, and they believed what they wanted to believe, and he had to do 15 years. And
So he killed his rapist.
Yeah, I was just hanging out with him last week. Like, that's the other picture I showed her.
Oh yeah, the one of him nowadays. I don't know if you want me to put that up because I don't.
No, yeah, I don't put up that one.
No,
but yeah, he suffered a lot too. A lot of people suffered in the 80s and suffer now, and I just want to see it stop, man.
One Spotted, you said, like, when you see their faces, right, that's the memories, and it bothers you, and it's like, as much as it hurts you, you're their voice now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, whoever will speak about it, they need those voices to continue to talk for them.
Yeah. You're making a positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Spotted could have her own movie.
She really could. I would
go to Angel Studios. I would go to Angel Studios.
Oh yeah.
They will tell the truth. They're going to cover it up.
Get in contact with Mel Gibson. He's all about this right now.
Right? There's a few places. And the other good thing about, like, if I ever did want to do that, they know exactly how to find all the detailed stuff. Like, whatever, right?
The archive, like all the paperwork.
Archives, yeah, and they have the money to be able to do that, because sometimes you have to, like, even to access some stuff, say like an entire transcript, that's like 50 cents a page, and there's 10,000 pages. You know what I mean? Like, little details like that.
Think about all these people on here who continually are fighting and bashing each other, right? Like, we're supposed to be friends and learning. But guess what? If we had a thing where we all could pull together and you have some type of cyber thing on, how good some people are into checking, even if it's not good, how they can dig up facts. Like, put that stuff to use. Like, human trafficking and child trafficking, that's like my number one. I would rather see that than these mindless fighting, bickering, know?
Yeah.
These people have computer skills, they have smarts. Then put it to good use, because I'm honestly sick of it.
Start talking about things that matter, Yes. And if you're somebody that's on here that's going to talk about, what you've been through, but you're not actually talking about what you've been through, not that you have to, but like, I find a lot of people are weaponizing their own trauma in order to control other people. And I'm not a fan of that shit at all. And it's like, you don't get to silence somebody because you went through, everybody's been through trauma, different levels of it. It doesn't make you better than somebody. It doesn't make you less than somebody. Like, so if you're going to talk about this and bitch to people, why don't you just start advocating for the shit that you went through and start talking about it and raising awareness and bringing up resources and bringing up, like, doing what we just did. Like, I was raped when I was 12. So, like, I wasn't trafficked, but I was violated as a child. And so some of this, like, for a little bit, resonates.
All her trauma and all that. Like, who are we to blah, blah, blah. We're abusing her traumas and that she's got complex PTSD. Well, how about you do a live one day that's interview like, or just yourself, and you tell us your whole fucking story so we know what are you talking about, because you just ramble all the time, like,
and lashing out.
You're not making yourself out to be a victim. You're the victor. You're talking about it. You're not. You did really good for your interview. You said it helps you. It's going to bring, every time you can talk about it, will bring you some type of peace or getting it out of you.
Absolutely.
And, that's what I deal with grief. But I'm just like, to hear the people that bash each other or hurt each other, like, put all this good stuff to use. Because, like I said, this app being called TikTok, it's such a waste of our time if we're not using it the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very well said.
So I am so thankful you came on and did this, because this is my heart, is trafficking. And I hope that we can keep, like, Lisa Bell, I've reached out to you about that kind of stuff with the podcast and stuff. Mm-hmm. The right people need to step foot together, and we need to find who we need to join up with, bigger than us, and go and start working on this stuff. Because the more people out there, I think we need to kick somebody's, what.
Hey, and it's a good time too. It's a political support. There's votes. There's people that are wanting votes. There are new people that are going to be put into different positions of government power.
Our youth are getting more and more lost. We need to save them now.
Yep.
Yeah, and like this is becoming a bigger epidemic, especially with the internet now, because that's like an entire new demographic that children can be taken advantage of on and lured away from their families and groomed out of thinking that their families don't love them if they're going to make certain decisions and things like that. Like, this is a big deal. So, yeah, we can all do our part, right?
I'll try and find because I watch a lot of Senate hearings and stuff, and there's been different ones the past few years about this very topic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find them, and then maybe we'll do lives like we do sometimes, Lisa Bell, where we just watch something, but we'll watch a Senate hearing on the topic, because then we can
let's do it.
The border agents had said, or what whomever's testifying, or the whistleblowers, or whoever, right? Because I usually just watch and learn, and I don't really use it for anything, because I'm not advocating like that way, but I want to now more than ever. And so, yeah, I'm going to find those. There was one really recently too, the border.
Okay, I'd be down to do things like that.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck this drama bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's start doing things that actually make a difference in this fucking country, because this country's gone to shit, and it's up to us to fucking bring it back.
New Year's revolution, whatever you call it, resolution.
Fuck that. Start today.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but we're starting today.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody else want to come up and say anything at all, or?
I'll drop, but thank you guys so much. And yeah,
Thank you so very much.
Sending you hugs there, Spicy Turtle, because I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you very
Hard
much.
listening, but I'm very grateful for the knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JoJo.
Everybody. Let's
God bless you.
end this now, and thank you, everybody, and thanks for the gifts, and I love you all.
All right, you go relax and enjoy your night, and thank you again so much for opening up, and yeah, thank you everybody for being part of this.
Thank you. It was great.